We can say, for the purpose of this little talk here, that the chakras are representations of cosmological powers. And I don't think that anybody in any tradition would disagree with that. And when we look at the images, we'll see that, yes, that is correct. So we can say, well, why? What are some of the specific ways? Well, first of all, chakras are associated with the 5 elements. And so therefore, if we see that the root chakra is associated with earth, and the second chakra with water, and the third chakra with fire, and the fourth chakra with air, and the fifth chakra with space, those 5 chakras are connected to the biosphere. And in a symbolic way, what that's telling us is that the intelligence of nature is operating inside of us in the symbolic system. Now, it's not just that Earth is only in the first chakra. Earth is in every cell, okay? But this is a symbolic way of saying this part of the body is more connected to the earth element, or the earth element has more power and activity in this particular place than other places. But the deeper interpretation of this is that the chakras symbolize the biological unity between the body and nature. Now, if we understand that, we don't have to study the chakras. We need to just come back to being aware that the body is inseparable from the outer environment. And the elements of food as earth and water, and sunlight as fire, and air as breathing are all moving through the channels of space. So therefore, the chakras at this level represent biological unity with nature. And if we study, meditate, and feel biological unity with nature, we can actually enter into deep states of non-dual awareness with those elements. We can feel that there is not separation between the individual body and the macrocosm of the planet. And that is one of the goals of the chakra practices and spiritual mystical awareness in general, is to dissolve the sense of self that doesn't exist, to dissolve the illusory sense that I am separate from everything. So the chakras then are telling us we're not separate from everything. We're connected to the earth. We're connected to the water. We're connected to the rain. We're connected to the sun. We're connected to space. That's what the chakras are telling us symbolically. Then the chakras are also telling us that not only are we connected elementally, we're also connected in terms of function, okay? And that means our physiology is the same as the physiology of the biosphere. So then when we look at the chakras, we see, all right, well, the third chakra is associated with fire, and it's right there in the solar plexus, and this has many correlations with digestive fire. And that links to metabolism. Now, where else is metabolism other than our human body? It's everywhere. Every living thing is metabolizing. So therefore, that process of metabolism is a cosmological intelligence. It's in everything. Okay? Every living thing is metabolizing. Every living thing has some aspect of that cosmological intelligence inside of it. And it is represented inside us in these systems of inner landscapes as the third chakra and its relationship to fire and its relationship, therefore, to metabolism. But metabolism is not just physical. Metabolism is also our ability to digest all of those unpleasant memories. And it's also the ability to digest, our sensory impressions during the day. It's our ability to metabolize physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually on all levels. And so therefore, that's also what that chakra represents. So it's again a symbol telling us that you have this cosmological power operating inside your physiology, okay? And so therefore, all of the things we do, we don't even think about it. We're breathing. Everything's breathing. This is a cosmological power. And it's not just physical, it's mental, emotional, and spiritual also that we are breathing. And we are eliminating, excreting, and this is also mental, emotional, psychological, and spiritual. And so every function in the human body is also happening everywhere in every living thing and in the macrocosmic elemental systems of the biosphere as well. That's what the chakras are also telling us. Then the chakras also tell us that there are deities that live inside of us. And this is actually not just found in Asian spiritual iconography. This is universal also, that there's all these depictions that show all these different deities, and they all represent things that are in nature and inside us. So these deities are representations of the powers of nature, and they are also the representations of the power of our human psyche individually and collectively. And if we look at our individual human psyche, we see those powers. Then we see that those deified powers are also part of the collective human psyche, and they are also part of the planetary psyche, the mind of Gaia. And therefore, when we talk about deities in the chakras, we are actually looking at 3 levels of deification. We are looking at an artistic representation of a divinity that is inside our own body, inside our own awareness, inside our individual psyche, but that's also part of our collective psyche. And that's also where the collective psyche grew out of nature. And it represents the powers of the planet. All right, then they are also, and this is probably how most people think about them, they're also the representation of our potential for enlightenment. And that's why they're represented in so many deified forms, enlightened forms. They're showing that not only are these powers here in the chakras that are part of the planet and they're part of the psyche, but they're also part of our potential for enlightenment. And that this is especially true for the 6th and the 7th chakra. And so we can make a very simple distinction that the first 5 chakras are really the chakras that are showing our connection between the body and the planet and its intelligence. But then 6th and 7th chakras are really pointing more to our transcendent potential, our potential of transcendence. And that's why there's such an emphasis on upward rising. Okay. And so this is another aspect of the chakras that goes back to these 2 directions. And that is that there is this general understanding and very specific teachings that the reason that we are incarnated is because matter has gravity. And therefore, there is this very strong magnetic pull to the earth. And that's described as being the sleeping kundalini, that the kundalini is actually rooted in the spine because of this force of the earth, okay, the gravity of the earth. And this is generally looked at in a kind of negative way because this association, this downward pull of the elements of the earth are basically in many systems what we're trying to get away from. And that's why there's this emphasis on upward rising energy. Raise the energy into the 6th and 7th chakras. Okay, now, as we will discover as we go on with this, this does not necessarily have to be literal. Okay, it does not necessarily mean, okay, that we actually have consciousness, higher consciousness here and here. It's actually everywhere, but it's a symbolic way of directing our attention to it. And that's why the deities of the 6th and 7th chakras have to do with enlightenment primarily, as opposed to the deities of the other 5 have to do with biological unity mostly, but they're also divinities. Okay, now That aspect, that last aspect of the chakras is what represents our spiritual potential. And so therefore, we can see that the chakras represent our biological unity with the earth and the powers and intelligence of the biosphere, and that they also represent these physiological functions that are taking care of us all the time, doing all this stuff for us that we share with every living thing, and that they are also deified, and that these deities represent the powers of nature, the powers of our individual and collective psyche, and that they represent our spiritual potential as well. Now, what happens if we meditate on a chakra in a classical way or a contemporary way? Well, we will begin to become more aware of that cosmological power.